Hello, and welcome to another episode of the podcast where we will reassure you that football is fixable. All right, chaps, how are we?
All right. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, very good, thank you. I'm very well. How are you, James?
Oh, thanks for asking. Oh, really bad.
Well, let's move on now.
No,
Yeah.
all good.
It's a very un-British thing to answer that question, isn't it? If someone says, how are you? And then if someone stops and goes, well, actually, it's not been a great day today. You go, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you answering a question?
You're not meant to actually. You answer, yeah, it's all right, thanks.
Yeah.
That's it.
In fact, you sometimes answer with the same question, don't you? You go, all right? And they go, all right.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's what we do. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the equivalent of, when you try and finish a phone call, but you don't want to be, you have to be the last person to say goodbye. So you end up in this like battle of bye.
Dan does that whenever you speak to Dan on the phone. Actually,
I do that. Yeah. I turn into like a machine gun at the end of the phone.
So there's no chance of any return.
Immediately cut off.
Yeah, so bang.
Yeah. But, somehow the British way of going like, yes, I was polite.
I got there first.
Yeah.
Well, I hope I did a good enough job in your absence, Dan. How did you find last week's episode all right, or did you listen to it?
Yeah. I didn't know you knew David Bowie.
I told you it was David Bowie.
It's Alec Guinness.
It's not.
It wasn't.
Yeah,
It's been about, I
yeah.
don't know, probably about 15 years you've been trying to do that. And still you sound like ground control to Major Tom.
It's Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's a name I've not heard in a very long time. That's
See, to Dan, that sounds exactly the same.
expert.
Yeah.
Oh.
That sounds. Who was talking when at what point? Then
exactly.
I
That's my
wasn't
point.
sure.
Yeah.
Right, moving on. Football podcast, guys. Just saying.
Good point.
And today,
Sorry.
And today we are looking at a topic that we haven't yet done. So we're pushing 2 seasons of our it's actually a season and a bit, isn't it, of our podcast?
Yeah.
And we haven't actually done an episode on this team yet.
That is very true.
And it is Lucky Liverpool.
That is a very controversial way of putting it.
Dun, dun. So we're going to be examining whether Liverpool is lucky as they've been made to look, apparently.
As good as that.
Definitely.
As good as
100%.
yes.
Yeah.
They're being made to look as good as they look. Is that right?
Sure, why
Yeah.
not? And also, it means that, you obviously don't like Liverpool this season at the very least. Because they're destroying Arsenal. And Dan is a very biased United fan as well. So I'm going to have to be, as the resident
Everton fan.
Yeah, got nothing against Liverpool. So
Nothing, yeah. No
and
bias there at all.
as we know, the most unbiased football fan in the world.
Self-declared, yeah.
Self-declared, but, basically right.
Yes. But first, though, do we have any news?
I've got some news, lads. So I'm going to bring back a topic that I might have mentioned before, but I'm not sure. But it's about Deutschland.
Oh, the Germans again.
It is.
Hello, Germany.
So I'm going to talk once again about die Zweite Bundesliga. So you remember I told you guys about the second division of the Bundesliga. It was like...
the best
Yes.
league in terms of how competitive it is. and stuff.
Competitiveness,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So, if you look at the English Premier League, Liverpool's, 13 points ahead, aren't they? So
Yeah.
what we're saying is...
Don't rub it in.
Let me just say that again.
Lucky.
How can you be so... Anyway, we'll get into that.
I think we should. Let's rephrase it. Liverpool aren't 13 points ahead. Arsenal are 13 points behind. Let's say it that way.
Oh, yeah. Which one would you prefer then, James?
I'm just counting how many points United are behind. I'll get back to you on that.
Well, so anyway, Liverpool are 13 points ahead of Arsenal, which means Arsenal are basically as close to 10th place as they are to first.
Wow.
That's the kind of humongous difference between first and second there is.
Yeah.
Now, bearing that in mind, we'll go to the second division of the Bundesliga. There is, if we think about the 13 points gap, there's a 13-point gap between first place and 11th.
Right. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, 12th,
Wow.
actually, now. They were playing a game there. So, yeah, first and 12th.
That's insane. When you think about it, in a weekend, so many teams can jump. It could be such an exciting weekend, wouldn't it? You just don't know where you're going to finish by the end of it.
Yeah, one of my
Amazing.
bosses at work, he has a season ticket for Kaiserslautern, and I think they were about 8th or something a few weeks ago. And I was like, oh, they're not doing so well. And he was like, oh, I think we're top. It changes so much. Just in terms of 3 points, if you think about one win gives you 3 points, the difference between first, if you think about the gap of 3 points, it's between first and sixth.
That's crazy.
There's 3 points difference.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So 1 week, if all goes right, you could win a game and go from sixth to top. And this is after, it's 25 games now, and that's how close it is.
That's actually, especially,
very good.
particularly for this season in the Premier League, it's almost a bit, what's the word when it's hasn't lived up to expectations in a sense that...
Yeah.
It's kind of like an anti-climax, isn't it, in terms of...
Yeah, and it's always... The Premier League has gone under this narrative for a long time that it's the best league in the world.
Yeah,
and we've been guilty of saying it. Yeah. But the thing is, the best doesn't necessarily mean the most competitive.
True.
And the most competitive can actually quite often be the most interesting.
Well, it is, in terms of if you think you don't know where you're going to end up, that uncertainty is a sort of excitement, isn't it?
Yeah.
You might think, but I want to be winning the league. But football should be about competition. The Premier League, we did an episode a few weeks ago fixing the Premier League, and it's because of that, actually. Yeah. It's a closed shop for some teams at the top. It's very unlikely. We've had that Leicester miracle season. How unlikely that was. Is that going to happen again? You think the chances again, so many 1,000 to 1 that any other team outside that top, because of the money spent by those top sides especially, just can't break into that.
Well, I don't know. There's more fringe clubs now than there ever have been, isn't there? So, like, the top, there's no top 6 anymore, really. Like, the whole...
Yeah. But then again,
the whole top half of the table.
But there's no real threat of them getting anywhere near the top. That's the thing. There's still quite a sizable gap. Even with Nottingham Forest being fourth, I think.
Yeah, top 4 definitely at the moment.
There's never ever been any kind of threat to who will win the title, even this season. It's just that freak occasion when Leicester did it, and that's pretty much about it. There was one time when Newcastle kind of got close in the 90s, but. It's just a once in a generation kind of situation. Whereas with this league, that actually will mean whatever team's in 12th could be, they might be the tiniest little team. I don't really know enough about their structure or anything, but imagine if they suddenly go on a 3-4 game winning run and they think, oh my God, we might be in for a promotion.
Yeah, title charge on the run. Yeah. And then, like you say, promotion into that's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah. Imagine if in the Premier League, there was a 13 points difference between first and 12th. That's going down to, I don't know who's 12th, Brighton or something?
Yeah.
Well, I can say...
United a bit low below that, so it's not
a bit below.
Yeah, we wouldn't even be in that 12. No. That's how bad a season we're having.
There's 6 points... 6 places are within 3 points of each other as well. So imagine that as well.
Yeah.
That's all of the Champions League slots, the Europa, going all the way down. 3 points difference.
Nah, that's brilliant. You've got to say, if you... don't associate it with a particular league or country or anything like that. If you just look at that, if you take all the names out, you'd want a league to be like that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
If the Premier League was like that, it would be even more exciting. Because it is a great league. The money that we've got, we're lucky to have the Premier League. But there are some issues that we have recommended our fixes for. So go and listen to that episode, Fixing Premier League. Right then, well, shall we get on and fix Lucky Liverpool?
Yeah, let's do it.
As we were saying there about the Premier League then, so has it been a bit of a sort of anti-climactic season this year? I mean, apparently, Liverpool fans are already planning their trophy parade, or buying the bus. So apparently, Paul Merson's already recommended that Liverpool go ahead and book the bus now. They'll get cheaper prices.
True.
It's pretty much a given they're going to win the league. Obviously, Arsenal without a striker, famously, it's been widely reported and mocked. You've got Man City, obviously, after losing Rodri, they've really dropped down their, sort of by their usual standards, at least anyway. So Liverpool running free. It looks like the relegation teams, you've got Wolves that are hanging just above it, but they're still, you think, comfortable compared to the other three. I think last I checked, there was like a 5-point gap still.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much settled now, first place in the relegation places.
Yeah. And depressingly, in a sense, it's the same 3 clubs that came up, like last season, that look destined to go down at this stage. So it just seems like it's the Premier League. A few exciting things, maybe countering that, is we've got Nottingham Forest in the top 4 at the moment, although that's partly because of underperforming teams that are usually in there, you might say.
Yeah.
And you've also got teams like Bournemouth really sort of pushing up. What Iraola's doing there is really good. But again, if you had Arsenal and City with their full teams, for example, even Chelsea, they're going through a transition. It's kind of a good time for the other teams to kind of maybe take advantage of it, you might say.
Maybe, but
nothing
I think
important really happens,
that's not as interesting. I think the main interesting thing to come out of this season compared to any other season I've ever seen is the enjoyment of seeing some of the big teams struggle in the way that they have. Man City, namely, but also United, Spurs. These are the kind of situations I don't remember ever seeing in my lifetime where the big teams that you would think they're just a shoo-in for the top four or something.
True.
They're the ones that are struggling so much. We've never seen Man City or Guardiola struggle in this way before. Never seen Man United struggle in this way before.
True. Yep.
Spurs are very overly Spursy now.
They've taken it to a whole new level, haven't they?
A whole new level, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think that's the main thing to come out of this season, to be honest, because everything else, like you say, is wrapped up, really. Yeah.
I mean, those things are funny, but when you want a league, you want to excite, you want to have a title race, you want to have something really interesting. Goes down to the last. Even last year, what goes down to the final day, and there's famous seasons with Liverpool and City in the last sort of 5-6 years.
Yeah,
go down to the final day. That's happened more than once. Whereas this year, it looks like it's going to be.
It'll be
decided.
done. Yeah, it'll be done early April.
Yeah, exactly, and that's going to be a shame, isn't it? I don't, especially if relegation's done as well. There won't be much point in watching the Premier League, other than if you're supporting those teams, maybe fighting for Europe or something. But
it's why we need to watch Die Zweite Bundesliga.
Maybe we all should just go and support what you just said. Insert Cess's name here.
Yeah, but, I mean, I've told you before, we can actually go there and watch a game and come back for less than seeing Bristol City, which is like a 10 minutes drive from where we are right now.
True. Yeah. Very true. Right then, so Liverpool have a 13-point lead at the top of the Premier League.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
At the point of recording. Is that through pure brilliance, or are they lucky?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to hear from our resident Man United fan, and I'm sure he's going to put his Man United bias to one side.
Oh, absolutely. To be on the podcast, obviously, we do that. So.
We hired him specifically because we know he's going to be completely unbiased. He's going to think rationally.
No emotion at all.
The things you make me do. The things you make me do. So the other week it was like saying that Pep Guardiola was better than Sir Alex Ferguson. Now I'm the opening pitch for Liverpool football team.
Hey,
like,
we just
what
know
more do
we're
you want to do
trusting
to
you.
me?
We're entrusting our podcast to you so that you can shoulder the burden of unbiasedness. You can tell the world how you really think about Liverpool.
Okay.
And use your rational mind.
A Man United fan, bigging up Liverpool.
Go on, so I'm going to start. Okay. So I'm going to start by saying that all rationality and impartial unbiasedness are going to be well and truly put to one side.
Well, at least you're honest. So that's something.
Yeah,
I believe that.
No, yeah, I think there are lines that I just struggle to cross sometimes. So I don't know. I think that what Klopp did was amazing. I think the fact that Slot hasn't actually signed anybody, I don't think is down to his incredible ability as a manager. I think it's down to the incredible work that Klopp did before him. He literally just inherited a team that was just ready to win a league.
Potentially, yeah.
So, but on the flip side of that, the way I see Slot, this is my viewpoint on it. I see Slot like Ange in his first season at Spurs. Like when Ange Postecoglou came in his first season at Spurs, everyone was like, he's incredible, he's doing amazing things at Tottenham, and it was like this new manager bounce in the first season, right?
Near the top, weren't they, for quite a bit of the start of the season at least. Like they're in the top two for a while, weren't they?
Yeah, but Spurs' level, obviously, when Ange came in, was not to the same level as what Liverpool's was when Slot's come in.
Yeah.
So Slot's come in to a really highly functioning Liverpool team under Klopp.
With season winners and things in there as well.
Exactly. Giving them that new manager boost, which gives them that additional little boost, and that little bit of luck, or whatever you call it, it just seems to be getting them over the line time and time again. And I think it's just that little bit of like new manager bounce, and I think next season they're going to really struggle.
The thing about the new manager bounce, I kind of agree with you, because I think when Ferguson left and when Wenger left, the teams were quite weak in a sense. They were, I suppose you could say that they were achieving more than they should have just because of the managers
100%.
that were there.
Yeah.
Whereas when Arne Slot came in, Klopp really did, like you say, leave a club in a good position. The players they had and everything, the structure, everything was great. So I do agree with you. However, the manager bounce doesn't actually last that long, if you think about it. Whenever there's a manager bounce, you talk about pretty much 5-6 games. But now we're 20-something games into it, as well as with the Champions League. They were well and truly ahead in the Champions League. I think there comes a certain point where the manager bounce, you could say maybe it started off their confidence right from the start, but I don't know.
I don't know. I think there's quite a few examples of the first season in a manager. Not just Ange Postecoglou. There was Ten Hag at United. He came third in his first season, and then look what happened after that. So, like, there are other examples as well. I can't think of off the top of my head. But you can get a new manager in that first season. You can look great, and then the second season it drops off, just like it has with Ange.
There's a few points I really want to put across about Slot coming in at Liverpool, and some of that echoes what Dan said. So the players that he's inherited, I mean, you're going to be really grateful if you're inheriting Mo Salah in he seems to be at his peak again. Some of his stats are out of this world. Van Dijk, you got him at the back, probably the best defender in the world. There's not many great defenders around. We've previously have talked about there's a very limited list, but he's up there with the best, definitely right now. And if you've got Alisson in goal, you've got Trent, you've got a really good side already there.
Yeah.
So to inherit that, I mean, that's a bit fortunate in a way anyway. Any manager would be lucky to inherit that.
Yeah.
So definitely sort of agree with that sort of side of things. But also maybe I'm looking at this from an Arsenal point of view, and you kind of always go into a weekend hoping that your closest rivals drop points and things. And there's so many times you might watch some of the games, you think, God, they're being outplayed at the moment. Oh, go on, score. And they've somehow got themselves through certain games where they were outplayed, they were dominated.
Yeah.
And that's happened like more often than not, There's so many games you're watching in Premier League. Fulham, I was watching them when Fulham played them. Fulham were brilliant, and then I think Liverpool drew or something in the end. And that you sort of think, how are they doing this? They've only lost one game, I think, against Forest earlier in the season.
Yeah.
And there's been games away from home. Brentford, and they've managed they nicked a draw. They nicked a win. Sorry, Nunes come on and got 2 late goals. Brentford played really well. So there's so many games that's happened, and none more notably than most recently in the Champions League.
PSG game,
the first leg, the PSG game. Do you see the stats in that game? It was, Liverpool had 2 shots, and in terms of like possession percentages and that kind of thing, it was crazy. So Liverpool had 1 shot on target, which they score.
Yeah.
PSG had 10 shots on target in total, 27 overall. To Liverpool's 2 overall, I might say. 70.4% possession for PSG against Liverpool's 29.6%.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you watch the game as well, the pressure that they're, especially in the first half, that they were putting on to Liverpool in that game, and Liverpool walk away with a 1-0 win, and that's like, you have to say, great mentality and the perseverance, and they stuck together. But I just, those big moments Liverpool took, whereas PSG didn't.
I have 2 almost contradicting views to that game, but one thing I would say is, aside from the luck thing, Alisson had an incredible game.
Yeah, he did.
As a keeper.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people tend not to factor the goalkeeper maybe as much as a player on the pitch because they're in goal, but
that was class. What he did.
He had an absolute world-class performance.
I think
and
he
if
said
it wasn't
one of the best of his career or something.
If it wasn't for his performance, they would have lost the game, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but the thing is, I completely get what you mean about that. That they've won or drawn a lot of games where they didn't seem dominant at all, and I get that. However, how many games do they have to keep winning or drawing before you start to think maybe it's not
luck?
Look at Real Madrid, for example. Yeah. They're the most successful European team, and yet how many times have we said that Real Madrid weren't the strongest team?
Yeah. It's very true.
So many times we've said it, and they still keep winning. And even now, when they scrape their way into the round of 16 or whatever, and now they're, I think, only 1 goal ahead of Atletico Madrid. They're not top of La Liga. They're not playing well at all. even now, I think they're still one of the favourites to win because there's just this feeling that
and
they
the
could
know-how
win.
they have and all
Exactly. So how long do they have to go? It could be that Liverpool win more than 13 points. There could be a far bigger gap than we've possibly seen in our lifetimes. There's such a big gap that there could be, and they could be in the shout with the Champions League as well. I mean,
so it recently, Pep mentioned it in his press conference a week or two ago that it's now impossible for Liverpool to beat you get to 100 points or whatever it is, and more games go by and stuff like. You think, okay, Arsenal compared to last season would be, I think it was 89 points Arsenal finished with last season, and Liverpool on the Opta predictor was meant to be finishing somewhere around there sort of thing. If Arsenal were compared to the same point last season, Arsenal would be where Liverpool are, if not ahead of them, I think it was. So at the same stage as Liverpool, as much as you say they're doing really well, they're also fortunate, whether you call it luck or not, but it's fortunate that their two closest rivals in Arsenal and Man City have had injuries, not just injuries, but to major players.
Yeah.
Rodri for Man City has been a huge loss for them. It changes their whole system, and we talked about that on previous episodes, fixing Man City, for example. Arsenal, I can only say as an Arsenal fan how much we've missed Saka. Ødegaard was missing for 6 weeks. It's been one of those seasons where it's just come in all hit us in one season.
Yeah.
And you just kind of wonder, like, where would we be if we had those players? Where would City be? Liverpool would surely not be 13 points ahead of both those sides if it was, a different reality in that sense.
And I get that. And I think that's we've always said, haven't we, that there's always an element of luck involved in any title win, in any success. Even, if you look back at the Invincibles, there's going to be elements of luck that you have to concede.
Absolutely.
However, you've got to also think that they've done what they needed to keep their players fresh. I don't know what they're doing with Salah to keep him playing 90 minutes every game. Yeah, I don't understand it, but he's able to do that. Van Dijk hasn't been this reliable in actually a long time. So it's good that it's now like he's come to a peak almost.
Since his injury, he kind of dipped a bit, didn't he? But now he's getting close to his pre-injury levels, isn't he?
Yeah, and you've got to look at his... the Konate is a great player, but he's very erratic, and he's been in and out quite a lot. Van Dijk's never really had a stable centre-back partner. Trent, we know, everyone knows what we think about Trent's defending.
Be careful, Cess. Apparently he's a really good defender,
of
course,
I keep getting told. Yeah, because of his assist and goals.
Who said this? Who said this?
Everyone does. But anyway, so Alisson, for example, we were saying Alisson's one of the world's best. He's been out for a lot of the season, but they clearly got the right person in Kelleher to come in.
He's a good backup keeper, Kelleher. He's really good, actually.
And how much you could say about Arsenal's front four are injured. For the last 2.5 years, literally everyone has been saying that's the one thing they need. They need a good striker, and Arsenal haven't been providing a good striker. So
we haven't gone out and bought one.
Exactly. The person that you're missing is someone that you never bought in the first place. Whereas with Liverpool, you could say, oh, yeah, Salah's been doing amazing. Their front forward players are great. Salah's been doing great. Nunez, this is the worst we've ever seen him. Jota, he's out injured most of the time. Diaz, he had a brilliant start the first few games, but then he's just disappeared. Gakpo seemed to be in and out, injured.
He was doing well until his injury, actually, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So actually, for Liverpool, they only really can rely on Salah, and Salah's just been having such an amazing season that it's pushing them ahead.
But that's the thing, if Saka and Havertz and Jesus and all, I mean, that you mentioned about the strikers there, but we didn't get a striker, but do you need a bit of luck or whatever to not get, I mean, they've had season-ending injuries, Havertz and Jesus. Yeah. To lose, you wouldn't bet that both strikers would be out for the whole rest of the season.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
So if Liverpool lost Salah, where would they be?
But they're all if things, aren't they? Because you're looking at, they said years ago, we need a striker. So they ended up getting Jesus, and they go, okay, he wasn't the right one. We need another one. And they got Havertz. And go, well, he's still not the right one.
Yeah, fair point.
So we're getting injuries. We'll get Sterling. These are all the wrong decisions.
You know what I feel about Sterling, sir.
These are all the wrong decisions for players. And so as soon as you lose decent players at the top, you're saying, oh, well, it's really unlucky. Well, hang on. For the last 2.5 years, you've known what you needed. And the players that you've lost aren't the level of the player that you needed in the first place.
You know about Sterling. You know the death saw. You must. It's like famous magic trick, right? The saw, where you saw someone in half or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's considered the greatest trick, the magic trick ever done. All right.
Okay.
But how Raheem Sterling convinced someone to give him a £325,000 per week contract, that has to beat it, surely.
That is, yeah.
So, we actually were recording an episode during the January transfer window when Arsenal were being on deadline day linked with Sterling as a loan move and that kind of thing, and how distraught I was just at the thought of being linked with it.
Yeah.
And now look at what we've had to deal with. And again, I'm sorry to say I've been proven right. Because I wish that I wasn't. I wish that he'd come in and do the job. But we're now having to play a defensive midfielder up front because Sterling is... I mean, he was subbed off against Leicester after almost being booed off. It was shocking.
Yeah.
We can't rely on someone who's on £325,000 a week. I'll say it again.
I understand your pain. I mean, we have Casemiro that's on more money. So.
It's perspective, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, what you were saying about in terms of Salah not getting injured. Yeah, okay, Salah's not got injured, but like Cess was saying, a lot of the other forwards have, and what's happened is Salah's have an insane season. If Salah had the season that he had last year, this year, then they probably wouldn't be competing like they are. But Salah's stepped up and he's played to a level which is incredible. And rather than that being seen as luck, I think you also need to see that as like a level of achievement. Like, for example, if your players that are fit and available, let's say Odegaard, for example, if he was really performing to his very top level and having an incredible season, you might actually have a few more goals. But I don't think Odegaard this season has actually been performing to the top of his ability. And I think that's cost you just as much as injuries have cost you.
Potentially, because I think it's something that... This is what I mean about how long does it have to be before you stop calling it luck. Because if you look back at the Luis Suarez Liverpool, for example, when they almost won the league... Are you going to say that was lucky just because Luis Suarez dragged them to within a few points of the league? Or,
is that when Stevie Gerrard, is that the one where he did the slip against Chelsea?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
Dan's Man United fan, this is coming out.
Oh, yeah, of course. The famous Leicester...
That was great.
The famous Leicester League win, you could say, if Vardy got injured, no one would have expected Vardy to go on that scoring run and all that stuff. But if he didn't do that, they wouldn't be anywhere near... There's always this if and but situation.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, what Liverpool have done is they have managed to make Salah work wonders in a team where they really haven't had a solid... It's never been the same front three. It's never been the same back four. It has been that they've had occasional injuries here and there, and they've had to work with what they had. But Arne Slot seems to have found exactly what Salah needs, exactly what Van Dijk needs, and they get the results that are needed. Yeah. We've said before that if you want to win the league, you've got to win when you play badly. And that's exactly what they've been doing.
That's what they've been doing. But it just feels like you're saying, how long is it that they do that before it's not luck anymore? But I swear they've done that more. I think Klopp's sides were better. Klopp's best sides were better than this current Slot one is.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Most games you're watching it and you think they're playing well on patches, but then you can just score. At the Emirates, we were all over them and we just let them come back in for a really good goal, to be fair. But they're just clinical. Salah scored a really good goal. They get back to 2-2. We dominated Liverpool. They could hardly get out of parts of that game. They didn't look like a title-winning side, put it that way.
Yeah.
And I just want to defend Odegaard a bit. I know it's about Liverpool, but Saka not being there is a massive miss for Odegaard because that chemistry that those two have, that opens up the space for Odegaard to then go and weave his magic. So Saka being out's a massive loss. If you take Salah or Van Dijk out of Liverpool's side, I just feel they would be nowhere near where they are now. And I think Slot's dependent. He's sort of over-dependent on those players.
Yeah, I would reckon so.
And Alisson, obviously, from the PSG game.
In a way that Arteta's reliant on Saka, really, I would say.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point, yeah. It's just come back to bite us, whereas it hasn't come back to bite Slot yet.
Yeah.
From the argument about Odegaard as well, like, if you took... Like, Salah doesn't need a Saka there isn't a player in the Liverpool team that Salah relies upon to perform. If you see what I mean. Like, Odegaard shouldn't need another player to perform to his top level.
I think the system, though, Liverpool's built a system, maybe to Slot's credit, built a system that allows Salah to just, he's like, get the ball to him, we'll do the rest kind of thing. A bit like when Ronaldo was, in various teams, the team would do the work to get the ball to Ronaldo, and he would just make that difference.
Yeah.
And Salah's done that this season.
Yeah.
Is that sustainable? I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens in, as time goes on into next season and beyond. Obviously, there's contract issues with those players as well they've got to solve.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's about sustainability, really, because Slot didn't bring any players in himself, did he, in the summer? Or I don't think they brought anyone in the January.
There was Chiesa, wasn't there, who was injured.
Yeah,
they brought him in.
yeah.
Was he loaned? I don't know if they've loaned him back or not.
Could have been a loan. He was very cheap, actually. I think he was a permanent transfer. But anyway, so there's very little that they've actually given him to change the team the way he wants. So he's worked with what's there, and he's not going to be the one dealing with the contracts for Van Dijk, Trent and Salah. So I think he's basically doing exactly what he needs to. He needs to work in the moment with what he's got, because next year he might be without his 3 best players and he'll have to try and get Nunez to score a 3-yard tap-in.
You wouldn't envy Slot in that position.
Exactly. So I think he's doing exactly what's expected of him, in a sense that, being 13 points ahead, I don't think would have been expected of him at the start. But what was expected of him is to rely on the best players that he's got, and the players that are quite iffy, he's managing. He's not playing Nunez week in, week out. He's interchanging him with Gakpo whenever Jota's free and all that stuff. So I think he's doing the right stuff, and you could call it luck, but I think there's always an element of luck. But I think it's also to do with how he's managing the team, how he's managing Salah, the fitness. They've had injury issues, so he's managing that as well. I think there's a lot more credit that should be given to him.
Yes, and I suppose with like all of these contracts ending, like you say, James, like you've got Van Dijk and Salah, they're so reliant on, and with those contracts ending, if these players go elsewhere, then we're probably even more likely to see that drop off, like I was saying, like you had with Ange and Ten Hag and all of that, from Slot.
Yeah, and I suppose that would be, you don't judge a manager on one season, do you? You're hearing people, Slot, if Liverpool win the Premier League, one of the pundits said, if they win the Premier League, it's Danny Murphy, they win the Premier League and the Champions League, it's the best performance that any manager's ever had. It beats Jose's first season at Chelsea and that kind of thing.
Wow.
It was on TalkSport last week. And I just sort of see that and go, hang on a minute.
Nonsense.
I know, you just inherit a side like this, and what's happened, considering the teams, you can only beat who's in front of you, but all the stuff we've just talked about, you look at Nuno at Nottingham Forest in the top 4, for example. We'll get to this at the end of the season, no doubt, who the best managers should be, because it would probably be the wrong decision again.
Yeah.
But I just think he's been very fortunate to be in the position he is. I'm not saying he's a bad manager at all, but ultimately, what I was just going to say there on the back of Dan's point was, time will have to tell. We'll have to give it more than one season to be able to judge how good Slot really is.
Yeah.
When he has to find a way to replace those players, Salah and Van Dijk and so on, can he build a team then, and we'll really see how good he is.
Right, for me, because I've been a little bit defensive of Liverpool, which again shows my unbiasedness, by the way, as an Everton fan. Right?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
thank you. So, for me, the fix isn't really about fixing lucky Liverpool in a sense, because that's you guys. That's your jobs, being the super biased people that you are. What I'm going to do is fix the rest of the league. Arsenal, for example, the main title contenders. I would more fix them so that it doesn't look so lucky for Liverpool. Because however much I agree with you that they're reliant on Salah and Van Dijk.
Yeah.
All the other players, even Alisson, there have been other players that have come in and done well. However, Van Dijk and Salah are the mainstays that...
The core, aren't they?
Yeah, that they're reliant
They make
on.
the difference.
Yeah, and you could say, I think you mentioned earlier, that you take Salah out of Liverpool, how are they going to do? However, we've seen with Arsenal, you take Saka out of Arsenal, you take Rodri out of Man City, you see what that happens. And just as much as you could say, oh, yeah, Liverpool are lucky, well, what is it that they're doing that makes them injured in that sense? Because just before Rodri got injured, he was talking about how he was having to play so many games.
Yeah,
and
complaining. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, ironically enough, he got injured, I think, a week or two after that.
Yeah, it was in the Arsenal game, actually, at the Etihad.
Exactly.
It was the draw, yeah. He got
With
injured,
Arsenal, I've mentioned time and time again that he's being overplayed.
Saka,
and we know this. You're an Arsenal fan, and even you knew that.
Yeah,
we were
I agreed
talking
with
about
you.
some of the games. What was it, against Bolton or something, where he came on
Carabao Cup, and
Yeah.
just, I don't know. And you would be messaging not just on the podcast, but you'd be texting me during the week, saying, "Why is Saka playing? Why is he on?"
Yeah.
And I'm baffled by it as well, because I think we need to protect him. What are you doing?
Yeah,
and it's like we're over reliant on him.
Yeah, and you've been looking at stats between Salah and Saka because they both play in the same positions. They're both left-footed. Quite often they're compared, aren't they?
They're quite comparable, aren't they?
Yeah. However, Saka, I suppose because of his relative youth, he's relied upon a lot more to cover a lot more ground, be more defensive, and so he's expected to do a lot more in a sense, I suppose, physically.
I think that's it, isn't it? It's the system partly, because Slot doesn't play the same way. Arteta plays a very positional-based system, so positional play, and Saka does a lot of defensive work. And if you use the eye test, and plus we were just looking at some stats before recording, weren't we, in terms of distance covered and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Saka does a lot more defensive work. That we looked at blocks, tackles, things like that, getting back in, trying to find the running stats, which is quite difficult to find. Actually,
It's really difficult, actually,
for some reason. I'm finding in terms of how much, that defensive work that Saka does. I was speaking to a Liverpool fan that I work with who said that, Salah, especially this season, hasn't done as much defensive work. We kind of use him as our outlet. He holds off. He's part of their attack in that sense. At Arsenal, I almost feel bad when Saka's chasing back before he got injured. You kind of see him burst in a gut to support Ben White at right back or Timber, whoever it is. You think, guys, it's amazing how much ground he covers. You think, go careful. Can you sub him off, please, Mikel? It's just, we want to protect him. And obviously, look what happened back in December. He gets his injury. But saying that, he's still created, in terms of numbers, he's as effective for us as he is, as Salah is at Liverpool, in terms of the chances created and stuff. Saka's still on 10 assists, which is, I think, joint second.
Yeah, that's incredible. And the thing but that's assists though. You've got to think in terms of goals.
Salah's been insane. Per match, I've got assists per match, for example. Saka's more than, in terms of assists per 90 minutes, up until when he got injured in December, 0.82 per 90 minutes, to Salah's 0.67 up to this point. Obviously, it's more games Salah's played.
Yeah.
But you think his numbers are crazy for Salah. Saka's still joint second of assists, and chances created and stuff is phenomenal. He's actually assisted more recently than Cole Palmer, who, has been playing constantly all season.
Yeah, but
Saka hasn't played since September.
Palmer's one of the best in Europe, though, isn't he?
Apparently, you'd think so. All the fuss is made of him.
with that train that's going past us, the
Cole Palmer train, as you called it. Everyone's, I don't understand. But so Saka's actually still up there in stats, even though he hasn't been around for the last 3 months or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So he's so important.
That's very impressive from him. Yeah.
Yeah, and Salah's just been that. I think it's partly that system thing. So Slot plays, and credit to Slot, he plays a system that allows Salah to get those numbers,
or is it that the right back behind him is just so efficient that Salah doesn't need to track back?
Oh yeah.
Were we wrong right all this time?
Yeah, defensively very strong.
But I would actually kind of agree with you in that sense, because the difference between Salah and Saka, even though they are very comparable, with the stats that you mentioned, Saka isn't really relied on for goals.
No. For chances creating, he's a key asset for creating chances.
Absolutely. However, when it comes to goals, if you take away all his goals, it doesn't change too much in terms of Arsenal. Like most of the attacking players tend to score around the same amount. We do
spread the goals even across midfield and all that as well.
Whereas with Salah, most of the goals come through him. Yeah. He must have 50% of the goals that Liverpool score. Yeah. So I think that's the big difference. He's not the one that's relied upon to create stuff. He's normally the one that is actually finishing the movement. However, he is also, on top of that, he is assisting a lot as well. Yeah. There's the chance, isn't there, that he's going to beat Thierry Henry's record of 20 and 20.
Assists, yeah. De Bruyne's equalled that now as well, and De Bruyne's best season.
Yeah, exactly.
Salah, you never know.
He's even doing that. We all agree that he's having one of his best ever seasons. But that's the thing. Is it a matter of the reason why I bring up Saka is because I think it's less to do with Salah and Liverpool being lucky as such, and I think it's more to do with how other teams are not coping properly.
Yeah.
With Arsenal, for example, the main challengers, and they have been the main challengers for this is the third season now, I suppose. They're the main challengers. Every single
always
season,
the bridesmaids.
But every single season they've needed a striker and they haven't got a striker. They've added people that aren't strikers like Havertz and Jesus. They brought in attackers like Sterling. That's made the team worse. Sterling has made your squad worse.
Yeah, he has, yeah.
Yeah.
Havertz has made us better because he affects our style of play.
Yeah, I would agree with Havertz.
If you extrapolated his stats before he got injured, I think it was predicted he'd be, if he kept the same rate of scoring up, he'd get around 20 goals a season, which for our system
potentially
is about right. Yeah, obviously that's...
The thing about him is he's a very confident player.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
And so it's a matter of, if you go on a slightly bad run, will he do a Darwin Núñez? So I don't think he's necessarily reliant upon, like Salah, really.
No, absolutely not, yeah.
And so I think it's more to do with how Man City as well. Man City, you would have expected them to challenge. They lost Rodri and they couldn't cope with losing Rodri. A lot of their players are aging. They only know that one system and they're starting to get found out for it. And Pep wasn't able to change. Or wasn't able to change quick enough at the very least. He wasn't able to react.
It's funny for a genius, that, isn't it?
But that's the thing. Those things, you could say it's just lucky that it happened to have happened on the first season with Slot. However, Slot's done exactly the right thing. He's gone into a squad that he's never coached any of the players. He doesn't know the club, anything like that. But he did the right things. Whereas Arteta and Pep, they've been in their clubs for many years and they couldn't cope with the situations that were given to them in a club that they were comfortable with.
I do think that the Saka injury is at least partly self-inflicted. It's not an impact injury. It was a muscular, it's his hamstring, and it was a, what was it, grade 3? Really intense. Like,
it was like a proper rupture
like
ligaments and muscle.
Rip of the tenures or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it was coming. We were talking about it on several episodes up to that point. He was playing so many minutes for England as well. He plays in the friendlies. And I'm saying, get him off the pitch. What are you doing? And I think Arteta should have managed that better. We are over-reliant on him on that side. Now we've got this next young lad coming through, Winieri, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will help take some of the burden off of Saka moving forward. But I agree. I think partly is our system's brilliant. It's a great system.
Yeah.
But you need the squad to be able to do it. And what Slot's done at Liverpool, he doesn't play that positional play style that Pep and Arteta do. It's a different kind of style, and it works. It gets the best out of Salah, especially at this point in his career. He's obviously in his more twilight years and things like that. They're playing to his strengths, and that's a clever thing to do as a manager, isn't it?
It is.
So Slot deserves credit for that. Yeah. So I did sort of go into this argument with, in the back of my mind, it's not all luck. And that's the thing. We're fixing the lucky Liverpool. Part of it is it's not all luck. It is more of a grey area. He's been fortunate. I still want to mention they've played Wolves when they were missing key players. They played Spurs, although Arsenal did as well when they were missing key players. Recently, they played Newcastle, and Newcastle were missing Isak. Yeah. When Arsenal played Newcastle, Isak was everything he touched goes in or sets up another one, and it turns to goal.
Yeah, but unfortunately for Arsenal, it was the ball, wasn't it? That's what it was.
Yeah.
Haaland was missing for City against Liverpool, whereas against, and he scores against Arsenal at the Etihad and all that. So, it's just certain moments, and you just think, they're just getting a bit of fortune. They just seem to be playing teams at the right time. And it just, so I think there is an element of fortune. Slots, and they've kind of benefited from the kind of wind, the momentum that kind of still... sailing the wind that they've benefited from. What are the phrases there?
I don't really understand the phrase you're trying to say, but I know what you're trying to say.
But at the same time, there's some really good decisions. Another thing I want to say is Slot has created harmony, really, in the team. It maybe a new manager coming in there is an element of a bounce. It freshens things up. They had Klopp where they'd won the league once, but they'd finished second every other time, pretty much. Yeah. Apart from when they finished third or fourth, whatever it was.
And when they finished like sixth.
Other than that. But they finished second a lot. And eventually, no matter how good the manager is, Klopp was amazing. And both of us have said, and I think, Dan, you'd like to play under Klopp as well, wouldn't you? He would be a great manager to motivate, surely.
No.
Oh, okay. Definitely not a United fan. But we've definitely said that, haven't we? So, in terms of, he'd just get the best out of you. But after your manager, who's this great guy you look up to, finishes runners-up so many times... Even psychologically, that must pay a kind of its toll on you. In a new manager coming in, building that freshness, that could do something. So that's a good side in a sense. And then he's created harmony. When Klopp subbed Salah off, I remember Salah would get in a bit of a huffy, kind of in a bit of a fit, why are you subbing me off kind of thing. There's been times this season Slot subbed Salah off and it's all sunshine and rainbows. So Slot's done a really good thing in terms of creating that kind of atmosphere, the culture. And that has to go to the manager as well. That's what the coach, the manager, the leader does.
It sounds like you're on my side now.
So I am trying to put across that it's actually more of a grey area. It's not one extreme or the other.
I think momentum and winning games does do that. I think also when you're at the top, I think one thing I would say with the luck thing, when you're at the top, it's very easy to see all of the lucky things that happen on your side and be like, everything's going your way and that's why you're at the top. But I mean, I'm sure every team have their lucky moments. They're just not necessarily top of the league. It's just when you're top of the league, those lucky moments are given more sort of credit.
I suppose, yeah.
Maybe you're more likely to be in as well because
of
the way you're playing. Also with confidence, we know confidence plays a big role in football. When you're at the top of the league and there's a chance, you know, it's going to add a bit more wind to your sails.
Yeah,
to keep that metaphor going.
Oh, you know those sails.
Just going to say it's very windy out here. Okay. But yeah, so it's going to help to push you, isn't it? It's going to motivate you. You're going to be confident. You might try passes that you wouldn't try when you're not very confident, and things will. You kind of make your own luck to some extent.
The Leicester City way, isn't it? Because that was very much what they were playing out of their skins, and they were. You remember when Vardy against Liverpool actually when he took that? Yeah, it was like 30, 40 yards out.
You wouldn't try that if you weren't confident. You wouldn't try that.
And it's the kind of thing you don't practice that either. You'd only do that if you were so high on confidence. You just think I could score from anywhere.
Yeah, and it was improvised, wasn't it? It was a great goal to watch. And that's it.
Yeah.
And this season, you look at the relegation, there's Leicester being down in the relegation this time, and it's almost like the luck goes against them because they're not very confident. They'll take that extra touch on the ball and slow things down. And football is no doubt impacted on by confidence and how you feel. So you might sort of, like Dan was saying, see that you get more luck if you're near the top or whatever anyway, but that's not necessarily the case. It's luck, you know? So, yeah, I think there are two sides to this. Liverpool are not completely lucky. Can I leave it like that?
I think I've fixed James today.
They're a bit lucky. I'm going to leave that in there.
Okay, so just for a fair balance, can I just say that Liverpool? Can I? Sorry about that. So just for like a fair balance, then can I just say that Liverpool are really lucky and really they're just lucky not to be in a relegation battle this season.
And this is the report from our resident unbiased Manchester United fan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I say something perhaps
yes.
controversial, though? It certainly rubbed up a Liverpool fan I know the wrong way when I said it.
Okay.
And that is that...
You rubbed up a Liverpool fan. Be careful.
The wrong way as well, apparently.
Yeah, it wasn't very nice.
Yeah.
It was basically that if Arsenal had their first team available and Liverpool had their first team available, play each other 10 times at a neutral venue, I think Arsenal win. I think the Arsenal first team is stronger. But
I would actually probably agree with that, yeah.
This Liverpool fan I was talking to is someone I work with. Wasn't having it. No, I disagree.
Well, yeah, I mean...
He's the same person who says that Trent can defend, by the way. So I don't know.
Yeah, okay, in which case, let's not bother. The thing is, though, if we take away the biasness, so you're an Arsenal fan, so we'll take your opinion away, and we'll take your mate's opinion away, as the Liverpool fan, I would still agree that Arsenal probably would win more, because Liverpool... What they do well is they live in the moments, don't they? Salah creates the moments and he scores a wonder goal.
In those,
but you can't rely on that all the time. Whereas Arsenal, I think you can rely on their system more reliably.
You say that.
Yeah.
You say that. However, like the season, the whole point of the Premier League season is to test this over a time, isn't it? Over a period of time.
Oh yeah. This isn't to do with the season. This is this was a scenario.
I just said a hypothetical scenario. 10 games where both teams have their first team. And I'd support that. With last season, we had most of our first team available, and we ended up getting 89 points, which is up there with. It's our highest since we went unbeaten.
Yeah.
So that's, you know...
Oh, sorry. Okay.
And we were maybe even fortunate with our injuries. That's what I kept hearing last season. We were lucky to not get any major injuries.
Yeah.
You know?
But what I'm saying is the thing about that Cess was saying about moments and stuff like that. It's not like they've had moments on the odd period. They've had moments nearly every single game for the course of an entire season. So I still think Liverpool would be able to produce moments in 9 out of 10 football matches against Arsenal.
You're using my argument against me. I like it.
Yeah.
Wow. There we go.
I think. So I fixed James, and Dan fixed me with my own argument.
I've got to fix Dan.
Yeah.
Hang on then.
Fix Dan. Yeah.
Is it time for some fantasy football juicy tips from our resident John? Was that good enough?
Yeah, why not?
Juicy.
Rub those tips up the wrong way, John.
John's juicy tips.
Alright. Watch out! There's a blank game week coming! It's time to sell your Villa, Palace, Liverpool and Newcastle players and sign some of my tips. In defence, it's the Welsh wizard, Nico Williams. He's the cheapest member of Forest's back four, who have the most clean sheets this season. And they also have a juicy fixture against Ipswich this week. In midfield is a man who has goals running through his veins, with his dad scoring almost 100 for Barcelona. He's also a great footballer himself. It's Justin Kluivert. I'd stay clear of the rest of Bournemouth's midfield, as Justin is by far the most consistent, and Bournemouth's fixture run is too good to ignore. And up front it's very slim pickings this week, with most top strikers either injured, suspended or have no game. So when in doubt, go for Mr. Dependable. It's the Kiwi wood chopper, Chris Wood for Forest. He's the top scoring forward in the game. Juicy.
Thanks, John, as always. And, it was FA Cup last weekend, so there's no change to the league.
Yeah.
We still got Sam, John fighting it out for the top two. But we're going into a Premier League weekend this weekend, and it's a big one, Dan. Big game at Old Trafford.
Is it? Nothing's a big game for us anymore, is it? Let's be honest.
It's such an Eeyore, these United fans
really
these
is.
days. They're not the same, are they?
Yeah, see what happens when you go into a relegation battle. This is what I've had to deal with for 4 years now. Wow. And only now has Dan started to realise what I've been having to go through.
Every season.
Yeah.
Soon my love for my club will diminish so much I'll lose all my bias and I'll be just like Seth.
Well, as always, thanks for everything, guys, and thanks for listening. It's been a good one, isn't it? We fixed Lucky Liverpool.
Well, I think we fixed you more than anything else. And then
Dan fixed
me.
you.
Yeah.
Well done, Dan. You're a winner of this week.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Well, it just remains for me to say, thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great week, and it's goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.